A child's game made into an electronic device, marketed to stimulate the mind. Let's take a look at Milton Bradley's Simon.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another look at. And in today's look at, we're going to be checking this out, the original Simon. We're going to be taking a look at the history of Simon, what's inside the Simon, basically what makes it tick. Then we'll do a 360 tour of the Simon, this Simon, plus Super Simon and Pocket Simon, and do gameplay of each one of those Simons as well. And at the end of the video, like I always do, I give my thoughts and opinions of the system itself, about how it was back in the old 70s, 80s, and 90s. And also, I always put commercials in between each segment as well, just showing how basically these electronic devices were marketed. So without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and take a look.
Simon sets the pace. You follow right along. Light the lights that Simon lights, or he'll tell you that you're wrong. Simon's a computer. Simon has a brain. You either do what Simon says, or else go down the drain. Simon is a master. He tells you what to do, but you can master Simon if you follow every clue. And if you think Simon's fun at a party, wait till you play it alone.
Simon with 5 ways to play from MB Electronics.
The story of Simon starts in 1976 when engineers Ralph Baer, the father of video games and the designer of the Magnavox Odyssey, and Howard Morrison were at the Music Operators of America trade show in 1976. There they saw Atari's Touch Me arcade game that was released in 1974. Touch Me was a game of copying patterns the computer was generating on a button panel. It had 4 colored buttons that would start lighting up, starting with 1 and adding 1 more color to the sequence each time the player got it right, also adding to their score. It would continue until the player got the sequence wrong and the game would end. It was made to compete with the pinball machines of the time, as it did not have a screen and joysticks, like a majority of the arcade games that were coming out. This game was not a success for Atari, but did sell a few units. Baer and Morrison saw this machine and thought the idea was good, but thought the execution of the game was horrible. In fact, Baer was quoted as saying, "Nice gameplay, terrible execution, visibly boring, miserable, rasping sounds." It was at this time that they thought that they could come up with a consumer product, a portable version of this game, made smaller and better than what Atari was offering in the arcades. By 1977, Baer had created a prototype of the game using the Texas Instruments TMS 1000 microcontroller and named it Follow Me. One of Baer's associates, Lenny Cope, programmed the source code for the microcontroller. They made the game so small that it fit into an 8-inch by 8-inch console. It was pitched to Milton Bradley, and they agreed to distribute it. It first debuted in 1978, get this, at Studio 54. You know, the infamous celebrity party palace in New York in the 70s and 80s, and was a massive hit there with the patrons. After the successful outing at Studio 54, Milton Bradley started distributing it to consumer stores. Debuting at a price of $24.95, it was a huge hit during the 1978 Christmas shopping season. It was so successful that in the following couple years, 2 new Simon games were released. Pocket Simon, an even smaller version of the game that could fit in most pockets. Also, Super Simon was released, giving it more games to play and introducing multiple players for head-to-head competition. Milton Bradley was acquired by Hasbro in 1984 and continued to produce Simon. The original Simon is still being produced to this day as Simon Classic. Other versions of Simon, such as the redesigned Super Simon, Simon Sticks, Simon Squared, Simon Trickster, Simon Flash, and Simon Swipe, have been made. So unlike most of the consoles, computers, or games that I have taken a look at, Simon has them all beat. Being released in 1978 and still in production today, in the year 2023, gives Simon an unbeatable 45-year run, and still going strong for a new generation of kids to love, just as we did.
Round and round go the lights and the sounds. Simon picks up speed as he goes. Simon goes faster by leaps and by bounds. Simon wins by a nose. Push green, push red, push yellow, push blue. Push till you're blue in the face. And just when you think you can match Simon's pace, there's another, Simon's brother. Super Simon's the name, and it's an exciting game. It's big and it's long and it's new and it's loaded with tricks. It's quicker than lightning, and he thinks. He thinks faster than you. Super Simon's great sport. He's got 5 games inside, and each will sharpen your mind. You gotta move fast, you gotta decide, or get, when you fall behind, Simon and Super Simon from MB Electronics.
Now let's take a look inside the Simon game. This will probably be one of the shortest look insides I have done, as there's really not much inside of the Simon. As you can see, there are 4 incandescent light bulbs and no LEDs here. On the board, depending on the revision of the motherboard you have, either you have a Texas Instruments TMS 1000 microcontroller or a cost-reduced version of this microcontroller with less pins, as not all the pins were used on the TMS 1000. This microcontroller really is the heart of the Simon game. Kind of like Atari's Pong on a chip. This is Simon on a chip. The microcontroller contains the CPU, and I use that term loosely here, the RAM, the program ROM, and the input-output pins. It has to be supplied with a clock in order to work. So as we can see, there is a small capacitor and resistor oscillator circuit on the board next to the microcontroller to provide a clock, or oscillation. This side of the circuit runs on 9 volts. The next side that we'll be talking about runs the lights and uses 3 volts. That is why Simon has a 9 volt battery and 2 D cells. Next we have the TI SN75494 hex digit driver. This chip is really used just to drive the lights when the microcontroller tells it to turn it on, whether that's when Simon is showing what to push or when the player pushes a button. Other than that, we have the on and off switch, skill level switch, game switch, start, longest, and last buttons, all of which goes to the microcontroller to provide those functions in the game. Check out the schematic to see how it's all put together. A really simple design because of the use of the microcontroller.
Simon, Johnny, you're the challenge of a lifetime. I want you, Simon. Once again, we two compete. You're the one I have to beat. One of us must face defeat. Victory would be so sweet. Simon, you're the challenge of a lifetime. Thank you, Simon.
Okay, guys, and here's the original Simon here. So as you guys can see, you have the on and off button here. You have your game select, so game 1, 2, or 3, and then your skill level 1, 2, 3, or 4, and they progressively get harder. The last button just shows the last sequence, just in case you didn't get it. Longest shows after the game the longest that you had as far as your sequences go. And then start, that basically starts the game for you. On the bottom here, this is where your D batteries would actually go in, as you guys can see, supplying the 3 volts to the board. And then here's where your 9 volt goes to basically supply 9 volts to that TMS chip. So there's Simon in a nutshell, guys. Now the next iteration of Simon we have here is the Super Simon. I just kind of wanted to show you guys these ones too. It's basically the same thing. You just have 2 different panels. Now here's your on and off switch. Then you have your speed, which is a little bit different. So you can go super slow, normal, or fast. And then you have your head-to-head competition. And then the skill levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then your games 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now this does play different games than the original Simon does. Same thing, you got the longest button, you have your start button, your last button, and on here you have the decision button too. Basically, that button shows who is the winner on the head-to-head competition. All right, guys, and here's Pocket Simon. So as you guys can see, it doesn't have an on and off button, but what you would do is just slide it to whichever game you want to play. And then your skill levels here, 1, 2, 3, 4, last, start, and longest. So if we hit start, your little start on up. So with that being said, let's go ahead and do a little bit of gameplay on these. So first we'll start with Simon. Now I'm not going to play this for like a long sequence, guys. I'm just going to kind of show you how it works here. So we're going to turn it on, hit start. Now I'm going to razz it. Let's get it wrong. And then you get razzed. So that's pretty much Simon in a nutshell. Super Simon, on the other hand, is a little bit different. So we'll go ahead and switch this on. We'll go to the, I think, one game. Simple, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and start it up. As you can see, the sequence changes on Super Simon. It's not the same. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. There, got it wrong, so I got razzed. So that's Super Simon, guys. Now this has different games I can go into, but really this is more a video about Simon. I just kind of wanted to show you how this one works as well. And last but not least, we got the Pocket Simon here. So this is really just the same as the original Simon game. So we'll go to the first game here. We already kind of saw this one, but we'll go ahead and play it through. Oh, got razzed. That's it, guys. So there is the look at and the playthrough of the Simons.
What does it feel like to play, Simon? You gotta look! Listen! Remember! You gotta react! Repeat the sounds and colors. Think fast! What does it feel like to play, Simon?
Intense.
Simon from Milton Bradley, a challenge intensified to the max.
Okay, so we've come to the conclusion of the video here, guys, and what can I say about the Simon? It's actually one of the first electronic toys that I played with as a kid. I remember probably about 1980 is when we got our Simon, and it was shared between me and my sister. In fact, it was actually my sister's toy and not mine, but we did share it. And I remember us playing it and getting into fights with one another over it and that kind of thing. And then later on, as she got older, I started playing it a little bit more by myself, and then with friends as well that would come over, and family and that type of thing. And in fact, the thing I really remember, there was one commercial, in fact, the one that I had posted earlier in the in this show, with the kid that's walking up with all the other kids around him, and he hands his coat to that girl, and she's like all melting because, you know, the Simon champion, she's holding his coat, and he was just sitting there playing the Simon. I remember that commercial very well, and I remember wanting to be that kid, like, yeah, let me, these girls are gonna, yeah, let me just play some Simon, that kind of thing. It's kind of funny how the thought, the brain of a 8-year-old or 10-year-old works when they see commercials like that. But definitely a really cool product. I really love these Simons. I still do. I still play with these probably once a week. I pull them out and just kind of play with them just to kind of keep my mind going, because it does. I mean, it's a short-term memory thing, where you could, just do the sequences, and if you can actually beat Simon, that's really cool. So with all that being said, guys, that's about the end of the video here. I just wanted to thank all my subs and all my viewers and everybody that watches. If you like the content, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe. Hit that notification bell as well. That way you guys get notifications every time I drop new content. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Y'all have a good one. Peace out.
Game over, man. It's game over.